Before getting into today's video, I wanted to mention I'm giving out a 30% off discount code for all of my online courses. If you're interested in any of them, you can go down in the description below or the pinned comment, plug in the discount code CHESS25, and if you do so, you will receive 30% off no matter how many courses you decide to invest in. Only good until the end of this month. We're days away. Make sure to head over, check those out, and yeah, let's now get into the video. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at 3 Pterodactyl Defense games. Now, for those of you that don't know what the Pterodactyl Defense is, it's a response against the move d4, in which case we're starting out with the modern defense with 1 and 2. And here with the move of knight to c3, we're going with the move of c5. You play c5 here, you are playing the Pterodactyl. And I've been taking a look at this recently quite a bit. I'm really learning to like this system, like this setup for black, and it performs extremely well in online chess all the way up to the professional level. We're going to be taking a look at how Hikaru Nakamura plays this position out against the move of d5, how Magnus Carlsen plays it out, as well as Hans Niemann. So, I mean, this is one of those systems for black that is very underrated. I'm hoping that it can get some more attention. I think that it deserves it. And one thing that I would say is that, hey, if you're a modern defense player, hippopotamus defense player, Pirc defense player, you name it, right? There's a bunch of different systems that I could probably name off. King's Indian defense, any of those types of, you know, hyper modern openings where you're giving your opponent the center, but then you're looking to go after that center for the rest of the game. The Pterodactyl Defense might be a really nice fit for you if you already like those types of openings, the modern, the Pirc, the Czech Pirc, the Hippo, you name it. Because again, we're giving white the center, right? I mean, you're playing the modern defense, but when you see this setup in particular, you're now going after that center with the move of c5. And if white takes the pawn, which isn't all that common, but if white takes it, I'm a big fan of capturing on c3 and then continuing to develop. You're down a pawn, but I mean, come on. I mean, I don't know. Me personally, I don't want to play this as white. This just doesn't look fun. I mean, I'm up a pawn, but what are the chances that I'm going to be able to hang on to that pawn forever? 0. I mean, these pawns just aren't going to make it. I mean, even if you trade into an endgame, you're playing as white. Obviously, it depends on the position, but generally speaking, even if you get into the endgame, I mean, imagine if you were in a king and pawn endgame and you're playing as white, and then black just went, okay, 1, 2, 3, just snatching off 3 pawns easily. So this is great for us. Now, with c5, all 3 of these games, we're taking a look at the move d5, which is the most common at the professional level. It's the most common online. So for those of you that are playing online chess, this is what you're going to see the most. And this is the best move, according to the engine. Now, I'm still a big fan of bishop takes c3. As we're going to see in the next game played by Magnus Carlsen, we actually don't see bishop takes c3 right away. But we're first off starting out with this game by Hikaru Nakamura. He starts things off by taking off that knight, and then going with my move of e5. This is the move that I like going with right now, theoretically speaking. And, you know, I think this does a great job for us in terms of really taking up the center. I like how we got rid of our dark squared bishop and then played e5, and then we're looking to lock it up with d6 soon. So it's like, yeah, our bishop wouldn't have been good anyways. So let's get rid of it. Let's damage white's pawn structure and really make this pawn on c4 a big target. And the moment c4 is weak, d5 is going to be weak as well. Okay, so again, right, one last time before getting into this whole system here, these 3 games, we got the Pterodactyl with fianchettoing your bishop, playing c5, and we're going to be taking a look at 3 games here with d5, starting out with Hikaru Nakamura. He takes on c3 and plays e5, right? Plays e5. And white here goes with a very interesting move, one that's not all that popular, the move of pawn to f4, and it's not popular for a reason. It's bad, okay? Pawn to f4. It's good to know what to do against this. I mean, we actually don't want to take, and this is a common idea in the Pterodactyl to take on f4 at some point, but that's once you have your pawn on d6, knight on d7, queen on e7, or f6, for example. You want to have good control of e5. If you take right now, white captures back. You don't have any control over this. I mean, sure, you could play d6, but then white naturally develops. Why did we take that pawn and allow white to develop so rapidly? So instead of that, what we see in the game here is pawn to e4. And notice now this bishop's terrible. It's just bad. I don't care if you put it on D2, E3, B2, A3. The bishop's not feeling good right now. You could try to bring it over to H4, but in order for the bishop to get to H4, you need a knight on F3 to support it, which isn't possible. So this is a very uncomfortable position for the white side. Notice just how horrendous their pawn structure is as well, which is one of the reasons I like the pterodactyl. You get the immediate kind of crazy position out of the opening, but you get those long-term benefits as well, which is really nice in terms of trading into an endgame. Here in the game, we have the move E3, D6, locking things up, and now the move of pawn to F5. Now, we have bishop B2 played, knight D7 is played, right? Good move there. Who would you rather play here, right? Would you rather play as black, I mean, or would you rather play as white? I'm personally taking black. Stockfish is taking black as well. And one thing that's good to think about is, from the opponent's perspective, how can they improve their pieces, right? How can white improve the pieces here? Well, it turns out it's very difficult. I mean, this bishop on B2, it's stuck. Again, I don't care which one of these squares you put it on. The bishop's just bad, right? And this C pawn would love to push. It would love to get control of this long diagonal, but the pawn on C4 stuck, and it's going to be stuck for a long time. This knight on E2, I'm not sensing any great maneuvers here. I mean, you can go to G3, but then from that point, what are you going to do? We've already neutralized a knight on G3 from being active because we have that pawn on G6 covering F5, covering H5, right? This bishop on F1, I mean, okay, you could bring it to E2 at some point. You know, maybe G2 if you move your G pawn, but this is just a really hard position for the white side. And if we're playing Bug House, for example, if you're playing Bug House, or if you're thinking about, oh gosh, where would I want this knight to go? I mean, E6 looks great, but how are you going to get there? That's the problem, right? That's the problem. You could go G1, H3, and then try to get to G5, but we're not letting you get there. We're going to play H6. So, I mean, this is a great position for the black side. One thing I'll point out as well is that black can look to fianchetto the queen on G7 eventually, or go to F6, right? But the whole idea is that this queen can take control of this diagonal in a way that the bishop on B2 simply can't. And white's always got to be mindful of that C pawn that isn't defended by a pawn and can't be unless somehow there's some kind of A takes B3 trade, which we're not going to let happen, right? For example, right, let's just say queen B3 is played. Let's just say we play queen B6, right, and white plays G3. Am I taking this queen? No, never, because then C4 is strong, right? So you want to be mindful of that. White has weaknesses, keep them weak, right? Keep those weaknesses present. But okay, with knight D7, white plays G4, which is kind of a crazy attempt at this point in the game. I mean, you only got two pieces developed. Your pawn structure is already horrible. You've already pushed your pawns too much. Now you're pushing another one. But before going into that, let's just take a look at the engine moves following G3. Okay, G3 wasn't the engine move there. The engine likes A4. But from this point, right, let's say that we have perfect play here. Okay, I just threw out G3 because it looked like a pretty solid type of playable move. Okay, just take a look at these moves. Okay, none of these moves are hard for black. These are all the engine moves, white and black. Okay, again, going back to the start, knight B6, improving move, attacking C4, knight F6, developing, bishop D7, developing, knight A4, why not? Here, B6, putting our pawns on dark squares, really solidifying that pawn on C5 and neutralizing the white knight. Here, king D8 and king C7. We're going to be seeing this come up again and again and again throughout Pterodactyl Defense games. This is such a common idea. And white just can't do anything to attack the king. I mean, I covered this in part 4 of my Pterodactyl Defense theoretical video. I mean, can't move, can barely move. White just has 0 attacking play. Black, on the other hand, we actually do have attacking play as we can gear up a B5 push. What we got to realize, though, is that white can't do anything. White's stuck. White's sitting there. There's no need to play in a rush. If your opponent can't do anything, slowly improve your pieces and improve them as much as you possibly can before making a break, right? You don't want to make a break too early and your pieces aren't in position and then all of a sudden it's a game. No, improve your pieces as much as possible. As you'll see here, the engine is not in a rush. The engine realizes white can't do anything, right? I mean, maybe it won't verbalize it like that, but in terms of tactical opportunities here, there's just none for white. H5, right? H5, H4, Queen G7. Okay, fianchettoing the queen. There you go. I mean, the engine likes this fianchetto idea, putting pressure, putting vision towards the opponent's king there. And, okay, here we go. We got rooks on B8 and A8. I know the position's not open right now, but you never know when things are going to break open. I always talk about that. We got a queen aimed towards the king. We got 2 rooks aimed towards the king as well. And we're in a great spot here. Now we can play A6. Now we can play B5. And here the engine likes knight to G4. Okay, knight to G4 there. And as you can see here, I mean, white's just under tremendous pressure. I mean, this is not fun for them in any sense. Okay, so that said, this is a very difficult position for the white side. If you're going up against the pterodactyl, you can get a really, really bad position really, really fast. So white here plays G4, a desperate attempt. In one sense, it's not a great move. In another sense, I get it. If you just sit around all day as white, you're gonna get cooked by Hikaru. So here we do have the move of F takes G4. And on top of black having positional advantages here, now black is up material. Knight G3 is played, and there's a couple of ways that you can approach this kind of position. You don't want to drop E4, right? You don't want to do that. So you could play queen to E7, for example. And when it comes to the knights, you got a couple options. One of them is to just, develop the undeveloped knight and then put the other one on B6 here, as an example, putting pressure on C4. That's a great way to play this. In the game, we have knight DF6 with the idea of bringing this knight to H6 so that you have double defenders on that guy, also giving this knight some flexibility to come to F5, which is really the main point of that. But okay, bishop G2, we have queen E7, bishop F5. Hey, if white wants to take, we'll gladly capture back. Very closed position, but obviously white's pawn structure is a lot worse, and we're up a pawn. And we have a 2-on-1 here on the king side, so we can push this pawn up, and white just can't do anything about it. And this is where we're going to be fighting for the win. Instead, here we have castling queenside. Knight H6 is played. H5 was better. Okay, H5 is the best move here. H5 followed by Knight H6 ideas, just getting some space there. That only helps black. But okay, I mean, Knight H6 is still a very good move. We have castling queenside, A4. I mean, what does that move do? I don't know. But as you can see here, white is just trying to do something, right? They can't do much. We have capturing on H3. Knight takes F5 is played. G takes, and with rook takes H3, this knight quickly jumps into G4, and now we see expansion with H5. King B1 is played, queen C7. Really good move there, looking towards the A5 spot. I mean, let's just say white played queen D2. They didn't, but let's just say they did. Okay, queen A5. That's an isolated pawn. You play queen to C2, okay, A6. Right, A6. We can slowly march our king over. Guys, these moves I just showed, bishop F1 and bishop C1, are the engine moves for white. White's just stuck. White's just in a spot where they're just waiting around, waiting for something to happen. And this is a situation that you Hippopotamus defense players can get your opponents into quite a bit. Okay, so keep an eye out for that type of idea. In the tournament where I went 6-0 with the Hippo and earned the National Master title by playing nothing but the Hippo, one of the games in particular, I got my opponent into a position where he just couldn't do anything. He was stuck, right? And when there's something that your opponent can do, when they have a lot of counter-attacking ideas, you got to play quick, right? I'm not saying play reckless, but you gotta be on your stuff. You gotta play quickly. You gotta play with intent in terms of really putting pressure on the opponent quickly. I'm not saying don't play with intent. I'm not saying just move your king back and forth. What I'm saying is in these types of positions, every single move improve a piece, but realize you don't need to sacrifice anything. You don't need to be in a rush, per se, to try to win the game in 5 moves. A win is a win, right? Slowly improve your pieces and go from there. Notice, again, with queen c7, if queen d2 was played, queen a5 is a good idea. And then here, what can white do? Nothing. I mean, you got 2 rooks that are aimed towards a pawn that's defended by a knight and a rook. E3 is attack, so the rook's babysitting that guy. The bishops are just hopeless. So, okay, A6, we tuck our king away. We get that king to a nice, safe spot. And then, hey, maybe we start thinking about rook B8 and B5 ideas now. So, there you go. I'll get off of that rant. King A2 was played in the game instead. We have rook D G8, and then a very similar kind of thing here. I mean, really the same exact thing. A little bit of a different move order, but we have king B8, and then A6, and king A7. And Hikaru here realizes white just can't do much. Right? White here tries to do something with bishop E2, but now knight F2 is played, attacking the rook. White ends up attacking the knight, and there's multiple moves that are good here. Throwing in the knight on the 6th rank, on the 2nd rank, or playing knight to D3. That's what we saw in the game here. Now, Hikaru here is up a pawn, and now he loses a pawn, but that means he's at even material. And that's the nice thing. If you are up material, you have that leverage to go, you know what, fine, take the pawn back. I'm going to get another advantage in return. Whereas if you're at even material, giving up a pawn feels like a much bigger risk, a much bigger gamble. I mean, yeah, white in the game took the knight. Let's just say white goes, yeah, I'm not going to take the knight. Okay, we just kind of keep jumping our knights around. I mean, this is a classic example of knights outplaying the bishops. In my over 28-hour endgames course, I talk about how overall I prefer knights over the bishops in the endgame. Now, of course, there's examples where the knight outplays the bishop outplays the knight. We cover that in the endgames course. But overall, guys, knights are adaptable because of the fact that they can attack every single square on the board. And just because the position's open doesn't necessarily mean that the bishop is better. And of course, you could say the same thing with a closed position, but I would say it's pretty rare to have a super closed position with the bishop being better than the knight. In this case here, I mean, our knights are just doing tons of damage here, attacking the pawn on E3. If you take, okay, we capture back with the F pawn. Okay, we don't want to take with the H pawn there because obviously our rook would drop. So we take back. Okay, sure, you have a passed pawn. We have connected passed pawns now. And if you decide to take on H5, we'll gladly take and just start rolling. G3. Queen D7, attacking A4. Let's say white does look to defend it with the king. Okay, we can attack the queen as an example. And here we'll go with something like queen to G4. And, you know, there's just a sample line there. But, yeah, a lot of great possibilities. A lot of ways that black can get a winning position out of that. But in the game, again, we have bishop takes D3. And then white takes back. We're sitting at even material. But who has the better position here, pawn structure-wise? Black. Not even close. Not even close. I mean, this is getting hard to look at. Well, at least if you're playing as white. In the game, we have knight E4, centralizing. Okay, now the engine likes rook G1. Just, you know, playing aggressively there, going after that back rank. But knight E4 is played. And bishop E2 was what we saw here. I do want to cover rook takes H5, because now we're down material as black. But I mean, Hikaru Nakamura, he's not just going to give up a pawn for no reason. It turns out rook G2, among other options, is a crushing move. If you block with the queen, what are you doing? If you block with the bishop, what are you doing? Because now we have a rook and a queen going after the pinned piece there. Let's say you defend it. I mean, if you want to try to survive the longest you can, that's the best way to do it. Knight takes C3. Thanks for the queen. Come on. If the king runs to B1, I mean, in that case, you're just giving us a check there, a check, and our queen's going to land into B3 and look towards mate. So that's obviously not great. If king A1, queen A5, going after that guy. If the queen defends it, oh wait, you just drop C3. We take on C3, and here there's multiple ways of winning this in 3 moves. If you really want to get fancy, I mean, you could throw in the rook. Right, that's one way of doing this. 1, 2, and 3. You could also, same kind of idea, go 1, 2, and then bring the rook over. Right, so those weren't even the only ones, the ways of winning that. But I mean, obviously, that's just obliterating the white side. So with that check, white here would have to really play the king up. Right, you got to play the king up because you got to defend A4. The second A4 drops, you're in trouble. And with our queen in A5, this queen with the rook on G2 can't defend both of these guys in its current spot. You just can't do it. So Here, queen b6 check turns out to not be the best move. Somehow, white here is kind of hanging on with their king. I mean, barely dodging the rook, looking to guard the pawn on a4. We're still winning, but the best thing we could do is queen f7, just attacking the rook. Going, yeah, get out of here, right? We don't want you attacking f5. We want to play aggressively here. We want to start infiltrating this position with our queen, but hey, let's just make sure this rook isn't attacking f5 first. If you defend the rook, okay, fine. Queen g7, because now c3 is hanging. Take on f5 all you want. We have a mate in one from that point. If you defend the pawn, now we infiltrate. Queen g3, queen f2 works, threatening checkmate. If you stop it, queen e1. If you take on e4 now, okay, we don't have a mate in one, but we do have a mate in three. Queen d1. And, I mean, yeah, if you bring the queen, we take it. If you move the king, we take the bishop. White's position is falling apart. It has fallen apart. With queen f7, let's say the rook runs. Okay, yeah, I mean, the rook's no longer attacking this guy. Now, if you bring the rook in, notice, we just saved some time there. We didn't play queen g7 right away. We attacked the rook ran, then we played queen g7, then the rook comes back. We get that extra tempo, and that helps us out. Queen g3, queen f2, and here we go again. This is not good for the white side. So, knight e4 there. White ends up going, yeah, I'm not going to do that. I need this rook to defend the second rank. And obviously, if you take on h5, this rook is not able to take on h5 with, the rook on the second rank. You can't take on h5 and cover the second rank at the same time. So here we do see the move of queen to d7. King b3 is played. Queen e8. Love this idea. A great move. Putting pressure on a4. Defending h5 as well. Giving that knight some support. You name it. And with queen e2, we now have rook g4. Now, if white takes, what do we do here? Well, honestly, either way works. Either way is completely crushing. I kind of like taking with the h-pawn, and white does get to trade down here. But now we have a situation where we're in a queen endgame, but we have a passed pawn, and I talk about this in the course as well. Guys, a passed pawn in general is great, right? If we're talking about rook endgames, bishop endgames, knight endgames, you name it, but when you have queens on the board, a passed pawn, in terms of its threat level, goes way up because a queen can't blockade a pawn, right? I mean, let's just say the knight and the bishop weren't on the board, for example, right? White could put the rook here. Let's just imagine these are rooks for a second. White could put the rook there. There's no way for our rook to force the pawn down the board by itself. But with a queen, like let's say queen g2, we can actually bring our queen into h3 while it's protected by the pawn, and the queen can't stay there. The queen's got to leave. Okay, now we push. The queen decides to stay there. It's not like we have a rook that can't leave the defense of that guy. No, we just offer another trade, and then we push. Crushing. So white here, again, refuses to trade, which is a good idea. In this kind of position with our passed pawn, queen e1 is played, queen d8, defending that guy again. Now we have rook g3 for the same reasons as we saw before. Taking is not a good idea. White here ends up playing bishop to b2. We have rook h8. White finally decides to take, but now rook g2. And I mean, guys, this king is in major trouble. We got the second rank completely covered with queen c1. Knight d2 check was played, and here white seemingly resigned. If you take the knight, you just gave up your queen. And, I mean, if you move your king, let's say to a2, for example, knight takes c4, and white's position here is in shambles with queen a5 ideas in play. Next up in the lineup, Magnus Carlsen. Same exact position, different move though. Again, my favorite move here is taking on c3 and then playing e5, right? Playing e5. Here we see d6. And I mean, funny enough, in the game e4 is played, we then see capturing, and then we after all that see the move e5. What I would say is that if you're going to play against e5, if you're not going to take the knight right away and you play something like d6, nothing wrong with that. I mean, Magnus Carlsen played it, but you do got to be prepared for something like queen c2 as an example. And now there's really no point of taking the knight now because the queen takes back and we didn't damage white's pawn structure. We didn't make c4 weak. We didn't get all those benefits that we got previously. So here you got to play something like knight f6, e4 is played. It's a whole different game now. In a lot of ways, this doesn't really feel like a pterodactyl to me. Okay, in my mind, a pterodactyl is when you take the knight on c3 and mess up that pawn structure and get that advantage out the gate. But okay, I mean, in the game here, white doesn't do that. We see the move e4, we then see capturing, and then e5. So hey, if you want to play d6, go ahead. Nothing wrong with that. But just know that in some ways, you might only have one chance. You might only have one chance to mess up that pawn structure. But okay, d6, e5, white here plays h4. Good move. h4, and then here we see the move of h5. Magnus just goes, yeah, I'm just going to keep developing. Right, I'm eyeing up that e5 square. When we're looking at pawn breaks for white, you can push the a pawn, but in terms of making an impact on our structure, that's going to be hard for white. None of these pawns can move. This pawn's making a pawn break, but with f4, this is really the biggest one that a lot of players rely on. And with us having our queen on e7 and our knight on d7, we're already defending that pawn. Not just so that the pawn's defended, but so that we can replace that pawn with an active knight, an active queen, you name it. Here in the game we have bishop to e3, and I mean, there's different ways of playing this out. The engine actually really likes the move of king to d8. Okay, this is a common idea. As mentioned earlier, king d8, looking towards c7. White has 0 attacking chances on the queen side. They don't even have a knight over there. And if you want to take, okay, we take back with the f pawn. If queen d2, you know, there's different ways of going about this. But I would say that, yeah, it's a little bit, you know, annoying that white has g5 and h6 covered right now. In the game, we instead see the move of h6. Okay, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I actually really like this idea. If white takes and we capture back, right, which is what happens, we have queen to d2, and now in the game, queen g7 is played. Sure, white has 3 attackers on that pawn, but we have 3 defenders, and white would need a 4th attacker in order to win the pawn. And we can relieve the pressure by playing g5 the next move against a bunch of different options. And there's just no way for white to keep adding more pressure. And by putting these pawns side by side, we don't have dark square, light square weaknesses in terms of that side of the board. No, we got all this covered, which is a great place to be. With bishop d3, again, g5 here. The engine really likes this move, and that really relieves the pressure from us, you know, seeing all that kind of stuff on h6. I would even say, hey, let's maybe consider knight e7, knight g6, knight f4, kind of a hippopotamus defense idea there. But okay, bishop d3, we have king to d8 in the game. Great move. And with f4, white here again. I mean, white's got to do something, right? I mean, if they just sit around all day, you know, eating some cookies and drinking some Coke, black is going to slowly but surely add more pressure, develop more, take more space. A prime example was that hippopotamus defense idea we just talked about of knight e7, knight g6, knight f4. White here plays f4. Turns out, though, we don't got to take. We can just keep developing. We already have support on e5. If white decides to take, which we didn't see in the game, we could either play knight to g4, which the engine actually likes. If e6, we can take on e3. If you take on e3, you're not just losing your pawn. You're going to lose your rook as well. And if you take on d7, we calmly capture back. You still can't take without dropping your pawn and rook. So black here definitely has a big advantage. We are totally carving out the dark squares there. And this bishop on d3 is horrible. And the bishop on d7 is fantastically placed, which is another key idea in the pterodactyl. You're getting rid of your dark square bishop. You're putting your pawns on dark squares. You're locking up their pawns on light squares. And their light square bishop often has a very hard time. I personally, though, I'll be honest, I don't think I'd do this. I think I would just take the pawn on e5 with my knight. And, you know, I mean, much more natural looking move. If something like bishop f4, this is where a fianchettoed queen comes into play very handy. Taking on d3, taking on e4. Beautiful tactical play. Beautiful. Notice, we're double attacking the pawn on c3. And if white takes, I mean, taking on c3, you know, it gives us a slight edge, but the best thing we can do is rook e8. And white's lack of development is showing. With knight gf6. In the game, we have g3, king c7, knight e2. And here, rook to e8 is the engine move. I mean, I will say it's a little bit non-human in some ways because it's like, okay, white could take. White could think about taking on h6. We could throw in a fork. But once the white king moves to d1, not f1, by the way, right? Because then we get the queen with check. But d1, we don't want to take their queen because then we'd lose our queen. But we can play queen to e7. We're down a pawn, but I mean, positionally here, white's position is in shambles. Knight to e5. How are you going to kick that knight out? I don't know. We have complete dominance over g4 as well. d3 is hanging. c4 is a target. If you defend the bishop, for example, okay, we take the bishop, we take on e4. We got our material back. And, I mean, we're cruising in this position. But that's very complicated. And instead we see the move knight to g4. I think that that's the simple move. I think that's the move that just, you know, quietly develops a piece, or really activates a piece in a good way. And, you know, from here, I mean, we could always think about bringing our other knight to f6, supporting that guy, as we have two defenders with our minor pieces on e5, which allows both knights some more flexibility. Rook f1 is played. We have rook e8 now. Now we have the knight coming over. And white here tries to make a passed pawn. Okay, fine. We take. White captures back. White has a passed pawn. Well, so do we. And ours is protected by a pawn. Bishop d7 is played. Quiet move there. Bishop c2, knight h2, attacking the rook. Beautiful stuff. And black here is just infiltrating the white camp. And white here seemingly resigns, which I was a little bit surprised by, but it's like, you know what, you're going up against Magnus Carlsen. Your pawn structure is, I mean, it's where do you start? And where's the rook going to go? You lose the rook, you lose the rook, you lose the rook. And if you go to g2, you don't lose the rook, but you lose something else. The queen's going to drop. So, yeah, that's looking rough. That's looking rough for white there in that kind of position. As you can see, guys, I mean, the Pterodactyl Defense, I'm really becoming a fan of it. I really do think that it has a lot of potential. Let me know if you want to see more Pterodactyl Defense content on YouTube. It's not very popular. It's not searched a lot at this point in time, at least, in terms of, like, you know, people looking up, you know, certain types of chess openings. For example, the CARO-KANN defense gets a lot more views and searches than something like the Pterodactyl. But for those of you who play the modern, I mean, the Pterodactyl is a strong option. And again, if you're going up against grandmasters, it works. It's just good. It's just good. Okay, so yeah, I mean, our final example here. Okay, our final example here is going to be a game by Hans Niemann. Very controversial figure in the game of chess. Depends where you're at. You know, are you with Ben Feingold's opinion on things? Are you with who else? Anish Giri, Magnus Carlsen? Where are you at? I don't know. Okay, I'll be honest. I kind of, for the most part, stay out of that drama. I just like the game of chess. But okay, d5 is played here in the game, right? Bishop takes c3. So Magnus Carlsen played d6. Magnus was okay with queen c2 or bishop d2 or some kind of move protecting the knight. But Hans takes the knight on c3 and here plays f5. Different approach, right? This is the Beefeater variation. I've covered this on the channel as well. And I'm not as big of a fan of this move at this point in time, but I do think that Niemann here really shows off how to play this at a high level. With f5, the main thing I'm concerned about is e4 and then f3. And taking on e4 is the right move. That's what we saw in the game. But you don't want to take the second pawn. Okay? You don't want to take the second pawn. If Niemann did this, white captures back. And white here has tremendous activity. And notice this diagonal has nothing on it except a black pawn on g6. So white here is able to get a lot of activity along that diagonal. I mean, let's say we play d6, trying to race that bishop out or something like that. I mean, queen c2 can be played even if we do fight for that diagonal, even if we don't want this kind of thing happening. I mean, just absolutely looking to cream our king side. And we play bishop f5. Okay, bishop d3. We take, white captures back. Guess what? We don't have a defender on e6 now. And white can look towards jumping into that spot with their knight. This is a big reason why I don't love the move of f5, and I don't necessarily recommend it to most players unless they really put the work in. You know, we've all heard the term "don't push the f-pawn." I would say that there are a lot of openings in which I do that. I mean, in the Hippopotamus defense, I do that. The King's Indian defense. Sometimes in the Pirc, you can't see that. There's a variety of openings. But in this position in particular, it is hard because there is that pawn on d5, and you have to play with a very high level of accuracy. But of course, Hans Niemann, a GM, plays the right move here with pawn to e5. Okay, pawn to e5. Now, there's good moves that white could play here. In the game, we have bishop to e3, which is okay. It's not great. It's not terrible either. The engine loves knight h3. Okay, knight h3. Again, we shouldn't take on f3. The engine likes d6. The engine likes knight f2. Again, we're not taking that because then white has unlimited access on that diagonal. White doesn't want to have to take on e4, surprisingly enough, because then this bishop is bad again. If there's a white pawn on e4, the bishop's bad. If there's no pawn there, the bishop is incredibly placed. So again, we're not taking that. I don't care how many times you offer it. We're not doing it. Knight f6. Hey, if you take with the pawn, okay, fine. We keep developing. Now you can play bishop d3, but the bishop's terrible. And it's definitely worth keeping the material at an even spot in terms of, you know, not giving your opponent that attacking play. So knight h3 and knight f2 is a good move there, looking to support this. Queen c2 is a move that performs pretty well for white, very well at the professional level. Again, we're not taking that. We're playing the move of d6 and going from there. What I do want to say is that taking on e4 right now is a mistake for white. But if you do see this, yes, throw in a check on h4, right? Throw in a check. And, I mean, you know, that pawn on e4 is going to drop. No matter what white does here, taking on e4 is a good move, right? But with g3, don't just go take that rook, because with queen e2, well, I guess it depends what they play, but if you do see queen to e2, and you take this rook, you're dead losing. Dead lost, okay? Queen takes e5. If you go to d8, bishop g5, whoa. So you got to go to f7 or f8. And playing knight e7, white takes the rook with check, and your king is getting cooked, okay? So you don't want that. If we play king to f8, going, yeah, I don't want white to be able to take on h7 with check. I'm going to take the knight now. Bishop h6 with check. King e8 ain't good. King e7, we get checked. d6 is played. And, I mean, sure, you got multiple checks available, but none of them are good. And you're about to get checkmated in 2 moves, according to Stockfish. So if you do see this kind of position, be very careful to not drop your rook as well. Instead, take on e2. All right, take on e2, play d6. You're up a pawn, and white's pawn structure is terrible, and you have a protected passed pawn on e5. Love our chances. But okay, in the game here, we have bishop to e3. We have d6. And again, is that a good move for white? Nope, queen h4. All right, so we have the move of g3. Knight f6 now. Notice how many times white offered the pawn on f3, but Niemann knows I'm not taking this guy and then just allowing all this crazy activity against my kingside there. Right? You can put the queen here all you want. I'm still leaving the pawn there. Take it when you want, but once you do, your bishop on f1 is badly placed. And okay, white finally takes it, and the engine here, you know, seems to like castling kingside, but instead we have the move of knight takes e4. And that's an interesting moment to play it. I will say that now bishop d3, it's a little bit late. It's a little bit late for white to try to pull this idea off. Notice as well, we didn't take on f3 and give white that development. We kept developing and we kept trying to improve our position every move. Bishop g2 is what white should have played. And with knight f6, knight f3 can be played. And white here can put a pretty good amount of pressure on the king side still, even though it's not as dangerous as what we saw earlier. But instead we have bishop to d3, and now we have knight f6 and e4 ideas. Again, we're trying to block the activity of that bishop, and we're developed now. We have e4 ideas. We have bishop f5 ideas fighting for that diagonal. Knight e2 is played in the game. We have castling kingside and bishop h3. We're castled. We're putting pressure on white. We're in a good spot. By the way, queen d2 is played. Let's just say white plays rook f2. Okay, knight g4. Going after the rook and bishop. You take, okay, we take back with the queen. Very active there. You defend the bishop, queen f3. That went bad for white very quickly. And if rook f3, e4. I mean, we could also play knight g4 there, but I kind of like e4. Why not? And if the rook runs to e1 again, knight g4 there. And we got a lot of ideas. I mean, queen f6 is in the mix here. We're going after that bishop. We could look to develop with knight to d7. Maybe we'll get this rook involved at some point. But we have complete dominance, complete control over this file. And how's white going to fight for it? They can't. So with bishop h3, white goes fine. I'm just going to drop the rook. And here we have knight to g4. And a cruising victory for Niemann. The queen captures back. We have another trade. We're up material. We're up. We're up the exchange, and we're up a pawn. So we're up 3 points. Let's trade any chance we can get. Knight to d7, queen to e7. Just playing solidly here. I like the pawn on g6 because it neutralizes this knight on g3. Rook f8, rook f4, knight f6, offering a trade. White goes, yeah, I'm not going to trade. Okay, queen f7. King g2 is played. We snatch off a pawn. We jump right back to where we were. c4 is played. And okay, the engine here likes b5. Whole idea being if white takes, we have a passed pawn. We're looking to take on d5 with check potentially, maybe with the knight going after the queen. Blah, blah, blah. But hey, we're now up 4 points in material. We don't need to play in a rush. We don't need to play risky. Just play solid. Make an improving move. Knight e4 is played, and there's a variety of ways to go about this, but one thing that is really nice about improving your endgame knowledge is that you're going to be able to see theoretical wins and go into them even if you're giving up a little bit of material. Hans Niemann here is up 4 points in material. If Niemann was up 2 points, would he win? Yeah. So it turns out 4 points and 2 points, both are a win. So we have the move of rook takes e4 and then queen f4 offering a trade. White didn't take. If they do, I mean, we're just up 2 pawns now. And we have a passer on f4. If you attack our pawn, g5, and we have knight e5 on the way. I mean, let's just say your bishop attacks our knight, trying to get active. Well, it turns out the bishops should have just tried to stay a pawn because knight e5 and the pawn drops. So that bishop should have just accepted its role as a pawn there. With g5, knight e5. Okay, fine. Right, you didn't let us do this, fine. Knight e5, g4, g3, f3, e3. d3, d4, all covered. How's white going to attack this pawn? They can't. The bishop is useless. Attacking the pawn on f4, attacking the pawn on d6, the pawn on c5. It is defending the pawn on c4, but that's about it. And if something like king f2, hey, let's play h6. I mean, honestly, white should play h4 defending it, because if white takes, we now have a clear king route. King h7, and yeah, we're making good progress. But okay, with queen f4, queen e1 is played. We now have knight f6 in the game. We have knight e4, allowing a check, but we're okay here. King to g7 could have been played. Okay, I do want to mention at some point the queen does have to get involved because, like, let's say we get checked again and we keep moving our king. I mean, white just keeps checking. So with the move queen d8, we do have a block on f8. Queen h4 is played, and queen f6. I'm not going to argue with that move. Good move. My favorite move, though, is g5. That's really pretty because, hey, if you want to go to e1, okay, I mean, queen f4, you're no longer putting pressure on our king, and we're putting a ton of pressure on yours. And if you do decide, hey, I'm going to, just keep some options open here, we have 1 and 2. Game over. But okay, in the game here, we have queen f6, queen e1 is played, then queen f4, bishop c2, knight d2, targeting that c4 pawn that's been weak the entire game. And with queen e2, we have capturing off of c4, knight e3 is an idea, and that's what we see the very next move, and white here seemingly resigns. I mean, the bishop is simply about to drop. So, yeah, this is simply crushing for us. So, hey, I mean, that was a lot of material there, a lot of content on the Pterodactyl. I hope you enjoyed those games from Hikaru Nakamura, Magnus Carlsen, and Hans Niemann. They all had their different approach, right? Hikaru kind of went with my idea of taking on c3 and playing e5. We saw Magnus not take on c3 right away. And we saw Hans take on c3, but then play the Beefeater with pawn to f5 there and go into that kind of line. I will say, when it comes to the Beefeater line, it is a whole different approach, because really what you're trying to do is you're trying to target the pawn on c4, but do it in a different way. You're trying to keep this e5 square open and eventually put a knight there. But of course, by playing d6, e6 feels a lot more weak if we don't have our pawn on e5. So that's why I don't like it. I think the Beefeater is a slippery slope, whereas if you play the move of e5 here, it's a lot easier to manage. But that's just my opinion. Let me know what you think down below. Which one of the players, in terms of their opening theory, did you like the most? Did you like the way that Hikaru approached it in this game? Did you like the way Magnus Carlsen approached it? Hans Niemann, you name it. I will point out that Hikaru plays f5 the most often here. So this is a move that he plays quite a bit. So I'm not saying this is bad. Okay, it's not the engine move. Okay, the engine likes e5, but you got to know what you're doing. Because again, when you play D6, E6 is a major weakness, a major outpost, and you got to make sure you're preventing white from getting in there, / making sure that your bishop is covering that spot. Hope you enjoyed this. Remember, just a quick reminder for all my courses, that 30% off discount code is chess25, good until the end of September. That counts for my Hippopotamus Defense course, Czech Pirc course, Modern Scandinavian course, my over 28-hour course on chess endgames, you name it. I will see y'all in the next video. Peace. I wanted to finish this video out by giving a big thanks to Walter, Steve, Rob, that's a lot of Robs, Ray, Roger, and the rest of my Patreon community. I appreciate you guys a ton. If you guys haven't checked out the Patreon before, there are some exclusive benefits that you gain by becoming a member, and I look forward to seeing y'all in the next video. Peace.